Hi there, folks. So, welcome back to Mossy Roots Farm. It's gonna look a little different. I got the shop opened up here. I'm just chilling out for a few minutes. Figured I'd talk to you guys. So one thing that we may not have a lot of experience with right now because it is such a new thing, but your social media presence. And what I mean by that is no, not trying to be an influencer, and no, I don't mean like how you physically look on social media. I just mean the things you say, how you say them, the words you choose really have a big impact. And so I'll use a little story here. I'm not going to say any names because I don't need anyone to have any issues with me, and I don't want to start any problems with anybody, but I had a family approach me about buying some cows because of something they saw on Facebook. I did not advertise. Well, actually, I may have advertised. I don't know. Sometimes I'll post on Facebook and then people just get a hold of me months later and say, hey, back in like 6 months ago, I saw you posted this. And I go, oh, okay. So they contacted me. They just had questions about Dexter's. I answered every single question that they had as best as I could. I also offered as much advice as I could to them because I wanted them to be able to know as much as I do. I don't want to hide knowledge from anything. I don't want to, pretend about anything. I don't want to do that. I want to be as clear and, clear and concise as possible, I suppose. Probably not doing now. But you have to watch because I found myself recently, and again, not to get into too many details, someone posts a lot of negative things about a certain breed of cattle that I'm really passionate about. And some of the negative things they are posting is not like, oh, they suck. It's more like, oh, they have this terrible genetic disease that kills all of them instantly or makes them have a miserable life. Well, that's just simply not true. Sure, maybe the majority is that way. Sure, maybe 9 times out of 10 that happens. But that's not the case all the time. So, for example, like with pugs, pugs have the really smashed in faces. Well, if you ask a pug owner, that's not a good thing because they have breathing issues. But there are certain people that breed for that because they sell. So, is it a bad thing? Sure, but that doesn't mean that you should just kill off or eliminate that altogether. It's an important part of the breed. Again, there's consequences for everything. So for example, if you smoke cigarettes, you know the consequences. You know it causes lung cancer. You know it causes all sorts of nasty stuff to be entering into your bloodstream, but people still do it. So what? Just because it's an animal doesn't mean they don't get a choice too? Just because I'm making the choice for the animal that makes me a monster? That means that it's just going to die a miserable death? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. But, so the point is that I could go out there and I could badmouth these people. I could say how terrible they are because they believe this. And I don't want to say I have done that because I was very appropriate when I do that, but I would ask certain questions like, how many other folks have had the similar experiences, right? Because they teach you in school, scientific studies, you got to have a hypothesis, and then you got to do some tests to back up your hypothesis, and yada, yada, yada. So my hypothesis was this was incorrect, so I asked other breeders that had the same cattle, that did the same thing, and they said what I was expecting. They said that it's not deadly, that they have cows that are 18, 20 years old that are still alive and getting around just fine. I have one that may or may not be getting around too well, and then I have one that's getting around like she's 2 years old. So is it really that big of a deal? I mean, I'm not sure. I had an Angus at one point that completely destroyed her hip. We had to have a mobile processor come out because we could not get her out of the field, and he processed her here on the farm. And he said that the ball socket for her hip completely shattered and disintegrated, but she wasn't running around. She didn't have a bad fall. She was by the round bale. So I don't know how she even would have done that. Maybe because it was muddy, her leg went sideways and it popped the hip out of place and destroyed it or something. I don't know. But that's what I mean. Things can happen. So these cows that are having all these problems, or so they claim, could just be from a weird injury. Like that Angus. They're not known for hip issues. They're not known for hip or chondrodysplasia or anything else like that. At least not that I'm aware of. They may be. I'm not aware of it. But you can't just say, oh, I saw one cow go down early on in its life and the whole thing's done. That's not how that works. You know, you can't just say, oh, I see one pug that died from a breathing condition, so we must eliminate all pugs that have that condition. It's like, no, that doesn't make any sense. How you respond to those people can put people off, or they can turn people on. And I don't mean that in a weird way. I mean that they might like you for what you say, your opinion. For example, I do not use any grain or mineral on my farm. A lot of folks like that. A lot of folks love the fact that I'm not using grain, minerals, or vaccines, but some folks try and ridicule me for it, saying I'm going to have an unhealthy herd. But they don't go anywhere. They don't do anything. And when they do go somewhere, they're fine. You know, like, it's just all of these things that make me go, how much of these things are really a problem? You know, how much of this stuff really is a concern if my cows are breeding, if my cows are healthy and they don't have any issues? How much of that is really a concern? And how much of that stuff can you really show on social media? You know, this video is supposed to be all about your presence, and I showed you a couple or told you some stories, maybe gave you some ideas of how I was beneficial, and maybe how I was a little bit of a monster and poking the bear. You know, you gotta be careful of that. You'll have a random person hit you up on Facebook, say, hey, I saw your post 5 months ago. Do you have cows for sale? You know, hey, I saw your YouTube video 5 months ago. Oh, do you still do no vegetables, no minerals? Do you still do no vaccines? You know, things like that. So you just got to be careful with your social media presence. That's why I try and be positive with everything. That's why I try and be upbeat about everything that I can be. And if someone approaches me about some negative topic like that, like for example, chondrodysplasia is a negative topic, I just go, some people like it. Some people are okay with it. Some people aren't. Anyhow, guys, it's been a long time since I've done a video kind of like this, just sitting down and chatting. It never seemed to really go well. But I've watched a lot of YouTube channels, and this kind of sit down chat is kind of what I like. I kind of like watching it. Just seeing some guy sit down and just talk. It's kind of nice. So anyhow, guys, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you on the next one.